At 57, Julia Roberts stands at a crossroads few stars ever face. The radiant smile that once lit up screens around the world now carries an echo of pain so profound it threatens to eclipse her legendary glow. For decades, she embodied the promise of hope and the magic of love. Yet few realize that just beneath the varnish of Hollywood's brightest star lies a history of loss, loneliness, and heartbreak. Overnight, red carpets and magazine covers fade when the spotlight dims behind closed doors, revealing scars no time has healed. As the world celebrates her as America's sweetheart turned Oscar-winning icon, she confronts a silent tragedy that neither fame nor fortune can remedy. Tonight we unveil the unseen story of a woman who conquered the impossible, only to discover that success can sometimes deepen the wounds success was meant to ease. Join us behind the glamour, where every triumph casts a shadow and every smile masks a memory. Julia Roberts was born into hardship, shaped by moments that would leave a mark on her soul. In a small town tucked between the red clay roads of Smyrna, Georgia, her earliest memories flicker with the glow of a candle in the dark. A childhood home battered by poverty and discord, where a leaky tin roof echoed secrets through the night. A father whose gentle voice promised safety until the final tape hissed its last bedtime story. A mother burdened by dreams that never quite took flight. Even then, a shy young girl hid behind a tremor in her voice, words caught in her throat like birds trapped in a cage. Yet in that silence, she found a seed of resilience. She learned that pain could fuel passion, that every wound bore the possibility of transformation into art, and that a single whisper would refuse to fade. Her spirit would rise to shine before millions. After high school, Julia departed Georgia with a suitcase packed with hope and a heart brimming with determination. New York City greeted her with icy winds and indifferent faces. Her first apartment reeked of damp concrete. She survived on cheap noodles and pocket change. Doors slammed in her face at more than 200 casting calls. Agents offered polite rejections that felt final. Even minor roles seemed stolen by luckless fate. Yet every setback carved her conviction deeper. In auditions she channeled the heartbreak of a lonely child, transforming tears into raw emotion that crackled beneath studio lights. A single commercial smile finally earned her a union card, the golden ticket opening doors to Crime Story and Tiny Tears. With each credit, her craft sharpened, like a blade honed on the whetstone of hardship. Soon a spark of stardom flickered, promising that voice silenced in childhood would roar across the silver screen and acclaim unimagined. In 1989, fate took its hand when director Gary Marshall stumbled upon her audition tape for Pretty Woman. The screenplay promised a modern fairy tale, but it was Julia's luminous vulnerability that transformed it into a global phenomenon. On set she wore a red gown that shimmered like a beacon, her smile challenged by whispered doubts that once haunted playgrounds. Day after day she infused Vivian Ward with raw authenticity, blurring the line between character and woman. When previews earned thunderous applause and audiences lined up around the block, Hollywood whispered in reverent tones, a new queen had been crowned. Overnight Julia was elevated to superstardom, but the crown proved heavy. Paparazzi still relentlessly swarmed every move, while her heart remained untended. Amid blockbuster success, she sensed the undercurrent of isolation that fame demands. The applause echoed in grand theaters, but in quiet hotel rooms, she felt the haunted ghost of her younger self still lingering. Now, at 57, Julia Roberts bears the weight of a tragedy. Behind her poised exterior, the silence of loss has deepened into a stark companion. The father who left too soon, the fiancé she abandoned in a surge of fear, the sister who slipped away in sorrow, all converge into a tapestry of absence that threads through her every breath. The laughter behind her eyes masks an ache honed by time and memory. In years, the passing of friends and a sibling's final goodbye echoed the void first carved in childhood. Even the gentle glow of motherhood cannot fill the emptiness that lingers when the lights fade. Tonight we follow her back through shadows and into the moments that shaped her. We'll trace the turning points of a life lived in headlines and hidden valleys, seeking to understand how the woman who taught the world to dream learns to carry the weight of heartbreak at 57, unbearable. Even at the pinnacle of her career, when red carpets glittered under 1,000 camera flashes and magazine covers sold by the millions, Julia's heart carried an echo of earlier losses. In the early 90s, after the runaway success of Pretty Woman, she became Hollywood's most desired bride, and tabloids speculated endlessly about her love life. A whirlwind romance with Dylan McDermott produced engagement rings and extravagant plans, only to collapse under the weight of fame. 3 days before the wedding, Julia walked away, leaving behind a pile of wilted flowers and a story that would haunt her for decades. That choice, brave and shocking, became both a headline and a wound, reminding her that public adoration could never guarantee private peace. Her next attempt at finding love followed the signature secrecy she built around her personal life. A quiet ceremony with country singer Lyle Lovett in a small Indiana church felt like an antidote to Hollywood spectacle. No photographers, no orchestrated smiles, just two hearts seeking refuge. But even that retreat into simplicity couldn't deflect the harsh glare of fame. Headline writers dubbed it a summer storm, fans dissected every photo, rumors swirled. Less than 2 years later, the marriage dissolved quietly, telescoped by life's relentless currents. For Julia, it reinforced a painful lesson: love, no matter how genuine, could be torn apart by forces she couldn't control: fame, expectations, the ghosts of her past. Through heartbreak, Julia turned to her art. Roles that demanded raw vulnerability became her sanctuary: a battered wife fleeing an abusive husband, a terminally ill bride fighting for her final days. Each performance seemed to mirror her own battles, translating private pain into public triumph. In Sleeping with the Enemy and Dying Young, audiences witnessed more than acting, they witnessed transformation. Critics lauded her unparalleled emotional depth, yet few realized that every tear on screen was an echo of real grief. The applause and awards bestowed momentary comfort, but the ache remained. When Erin Brockovich arrived in 2000, Julia exploded into yet another stratosphere. Earning a record-breaking $20 million for a single role, she won an Academy Award and cemented her legacy as a force of nature. The world cheered the tale of a feisty legal assistant battling corporate injustice. Yet behind the trophy and triumph, Julia faced another battle that would shade every victory. Her half-sister Nancy Moats had grown envious and resentful, struck by demons of addiction and mental illness. Their relationship fractured painfully, punctuated by public jabs and family tensions. In 2014, Nancy's suicide reopened old wounds, a reminder of how even fame cannot heal fractured bonds. Julia mourned a sister few understood and carried the guilt that comes with survivor's sorrow. Motherhood brought its own joys and sorrows in equal measure. When Julia married cinematographer Daniel Moder in 2002 and welcomed twins Hazel and Phineas in 2004, followed by son Henry in 2007, the tabloids finally found a narrative they respected. A serene ranch in New Mexico, a protective ring of trust funds and devoted security, children sheltered from prying eyes. Yet as her family flourished, an emptiness lurked just below each bedtime story and sunlit breakfast. The fierce independence that made her a star now tempered her ability to ask for help. Even surrounded by love, she sensed the void of a father gone too soon, a sister lost, and the stifling solitude of fame. Over the years, rumors of a private health scare circulated without confirmation, fueling speculation that the world's brightest smile might hide a deeper ache. Was it a chronic condition, stress-induced collapse, or nothing more than the natural process of aging? Julia never answered directly. Instead, she lets actions speak: quiet mornings of yoga and Pilates, long walks along Malibu shores, stoic appearances only for projects that ignite her soul. In interviews, she mentions balance, peace, and living in the moment, but those words provide only a glimpse. The full story remains locked away, revealed only in the way she holds her children's hands and steps into each new role, as if survival depended on it. As the children matured and moved toward their own lives, Julia confronted a truth many artists face: the empty nest can echo louder than an abandoned set. With fewer familial obligations, silence grew around her mansion's broad corridors. The laughter that once rang through the kitchen began to fade. She dove into producing films, amplifying voices of underrepresented directors. Yet even that purposeful work could not fully fill the hush of late evenings. In private she opened the door to memories she once sealed away, letters from a brother estranged by years of neglect, cassette tapes of her father's bedtime stories, red wedding petals pressed between pages of an old journal. Now at 57, Julia Roberts stands at the threshold of her next act, her greatest role yet unwritten. Her legacy glows like a guiding star, but shadows linger. In the glare of fame's final frontier, she wrestles with grief, guilt, and the passage of time. To understand her journey is to recognize that even the most luminous smile can carry the weight of heartbreak so profound it reshapes every triumph. Tonight we continue through the corridors of her memory, peeling back layers of stardust to expose the raw heart beneath. The story is far from over, and the tragedy at 57 might be just the beginning. Inside the silent halls of her Malibu home, Julia Roberts walks barefoot across sunlit floors, memories echoing like distant thunder. Photographs line the walls, a shy toddler in Georgia, a radiant bride in red, her own children huddled close under a golden sunrise. Each image captures a moment of triumph and illusion, smiles that once hid tremors beneath. Now at 57, every step seems laden with the weight of those frozen smiles, the moments she would rather forget, and the ones she still longs to create. Away from cameras, Julia pours her strength into projects that reflect her inner journey. As a producer at Red Arm Films, she champions stories that amplify silenced voices, women escaping violence, rebels defying injustice, families battling grief. She knows too well how pain can be the catalyst for transformation. In quiet meetings with first-time directors, she encourages authenticity over gloss. Each choice feels like an offering, a way to convert her own wounds into a beacon for others lost in darkness. As Lancome's longtime ambassador, she embodies a beauty philosophy that embraces imperfection. In campaigns shot at dawn, with bare skin kissed only by soft light, she speaks of self-acceptance as revolution. In glossy spreads and video essays, she dispels myths about age, urging women of all generations to wear their scars with pride. Yet behind the kind gaze and gracious words, there lingers a question she asks in rare interviews: can you truly love yourself when silence still lives inside you? Her film choices mirror an evolving quest for meaning. In Ticket to Paradise, she plays a woman rediscovering love outside fairy tale bounds. In the Netflix miniseries Leave the World Behind, she channels anxiety and resilience amid societal collapse. Upcoming is After the Hunt, a character study of a mother grappling with loss in the wilds of Alaska. With each role, Julia seems to chase pieces of her past, little remnants of heartache, turned into performance fuel, breathing truth into fiction. Yet critical acclaim and record salaries cannot banish solitude. After premieres, when spotlights dim and fans' cheers fade, she retreats to her Taos ranch, where wind whispers through aspens and memory runs its own course. There, she scrolls through old journals, the edges stained by tears that never dried. In her own script, grief has no act break, only a continuous thread that binds childhood farewells to present farewells. Every triumph still hums with its opposite absence. The golden years of stardom have offered glimpses of peace, but never permanent sanctuary. At award ceremonies, she smiles through speeches left unwritten, her pulse thrumming beneath sequined gowns. She nods graciously when presenters hail her as a legend, yet thinks in whispers who will tell the story behind the trophies. That truth remains locked away, the final scene unpublished, her most private interviews conducted in shadow and silence. Fans often reach out to her through social media, urging her to share untold confessions, to reveal the real Julia behind the persona. She replies with measured kindness, an emoji, a brief thanks, guarding her boundaries like precious heirlooms. The world expects candor, but she has learned that some stories burn too brightly to be revealed in daylight. Some truths must be held close, like secrets murmured under a mother's breath, or carved into the bark of a solitary tree. In her search for healing, she has embraced meditation retreats and silent pilgrimages, days spent without speech, listening instead to the echo of her own breath. She has studied journaling under the desert sun, longhand letters never mailed, each one a confession to the girl lost in Georgia. She has sworn off public therapy, preferring the intimacy of private sessions where no microphone can steal a confession. Still, those whispers of relief hardly last, fading like footprints in sand. Tonight, as she contemplates her next move, a flicker of the old fire still glows. A Broadway adaptation awaits her in New York, an opportunity to return to live performance, unedited and raw. She debates whether to step onto a stage without the safety net of retakes, to let vulnerability hollow her proud facade. It feels like the final frontier, where silence and applause collide. Will she dare to stand alone, under the glare of spotlights once more? Every chapter of her life has turned on a question no script could answer. Can you rewrite your story, when the rough drafts never quite captured the sorrow? At 57, Julia Roberts confronts that question anew. Her legacy of laughter and love has taught millions, yet her own soul still searches for closure. As she peers through the window at sunset, the horizon blurs between past wounds and future promises. Her story insists on unfolding, like a flower refusing to wither in winter. Soon we will follow her beyond celebrity gossip into the quiet corridors where memory reigns. We will ask how the brightest smiles fade and how a woman who conquered every Hollywood dream learns to battle the darkness she once embraced. Julia Roberts' path remains unwritten, her greatest role yet to come. Stay with us, as we continue into the heart of the tragedy behind the glow at 57, and discover if renewal can be born from the deepest hurt. Tonight, Julia sits alone before the fireplace in her Malibu estate, the amber glow painting long shadows across her living room walls. In one hand, she holds a letter written by her father, its edges yellowed with age, whispering promises of safety she has never forgotten. In the other, a photo of that cottage church in Indiana where she once fled from spectacle and heartbreak, a moment she called both her downfall and her rebirth. These two artifacts, one a memory of paternal love forever paused, the other a witness to her own courage in the face of tragedy, remind her that story and survival cannot be separated. She runs her fingers across the creased paper, as though by touch she might summon the voices of those she has lost, and the strength that carried her forward. Earlier this year, Julia spoke at a gala to raise funds for an organization dedicated to preventing domestic violence. On the grand stage she requested no spotlight, stepping into the shadows so the stories of survivors could fill every corner. Her voice cracked with raw sincerity as she recounted the performance in Sleeping with the Enemy, saying she had bled on that set not just for art but to understand deeper wounds that many endure in silence. The room fell silent in turn, millions raised by the power of empathy, rather than celebrity. And yet afterward, she slipped through a service entrance, tears hidden beneath dark sunglasses, acutely aware that even acts of compassion can be tinged with sorrow. Film remains Julia's greatest stage and refuge, yet her choices now feel more intimate than ever. After the emotional expanse of Leave the World Behind, she accepted a role as a grieving widow returning to her parents' ranch, a character's journey mirroring her own search for roots amid chaos. In rehearsals, she conjures childhood memories, the sound of rain on tin roofs, and the tremor of her voice as a shy little girl. She channels absence into dialogue, loss into a gesture, transforming what once seemed personal pain into a universal refrain. Under the director's watchful eye, she excavates corners of her soul to illuminate truths that resonate far beyond box office metrics. Behind the scenes, Julia's creative partnerships have grown more private and profound. She mentors emerging screenwriters whose scripts echo her own experiences of heartbreak and hope. In long Zoom calls and handwritten notes, she helps shape stories about mothers navigating grief, activists demanding justice, and survivors reclaiming their voices. Her guidance is gentle yet precise. She urges writers to mind their own unlived chapters, and to trust the tremble in their voice as evidence of authenticity. Through these collaborations, she builds a legacy not just of her own story, but of countless others who might never stand in her shoes, but will feel seen on the page. Despite her stature, Julia navigates Hollywood corridors with measured steps. On film sets, she arrives early and stays late, greeting crew members by name, reinforcing respect over hierarchy. She pays attention to the smallest details, a costume not quite right, a prop carrying unintended meaning, a script line that misses emotional truth. These observations reflect decades of learning that art thrives on honesty, and that perfection is secondary to vulnerability. In these spaces, her quiet insistence on integrity has become her most potent form of influence, shaping industry norms without a single headline. As the anniversary of Nancy's passing approached, Julia retreated into silence for 2 weeks, foregoing interviews, public appearances, and the usual press junkets. Instead, she took a solitary trip to Lake County, Ohio, walking the wooded trails she knows from childhood retreats with her half-sister. She clasped the locket Nancy had gifted her, feeling the weight of grief and forgiveness entwined in silver filigree. Every step was an homage, every breath a prayer for a sister who never received the peace Julia now fought to protect. When the public saw her again at the premiere of her latest film, her smile was softer, her eyes glistening with quiet determination. As dusk falls over Malibu, Julia sits and looks toward the Pacific's horizon. She recalls her first view of the ocean as a star, the wind tossing her hair, salt seeping into her skin. Back then, the ocean felt like endless possibility. Now it feels like witness to every turning point in her life. The roar of the surf reminds her that time moves forward and tides shift. Tonight, as the ocean's roar reminds her that time moves forward and tides shift, Julia contemplates the shape of the road ahead. Aging gracefully in a business that prizes youth and reinvention, she now stands among the few women who have navigated every twist of the celebrity labyrinth. At 57, she recognizes that the battles she wages are no longer for box office records or red carpet glimmers, but for quiet moments of authenticity and inner peace. Retirement holds no allure, nor does perpetual hustle. Instead, she seeks equilibrium, an artful blend of purpose and presence, ambition and acceptance, public triumph and private tranquility. In recent months, Julia has invested deeply in the nonprofit she co-founded to support children of incarcerated parents. Through discreet dinners and heartfelt conversations, she channels her own childhood wounds into a cause that gives voice to young souls living in the shadows of shame. She meets some beneficiaries in person, hearing their stories in hushed rooms where every detail of family fracture is spoken softly. Every tear she witnesses becomes a testament to the resilience she cultivated in Georgia's storms. Her role here is more than patronage. It is a calling that resonates with the hollow echoes of her teenage self, teaching her that survival can bloom from the most unexpected soil. She has also embarked on a memoir, negotiating with editors under strict confidentiality. In the pages she pours her unvarnished recollections, the cold nights hugging a broken heater, the hush of neighbors calling the police, the crash of excitement when a union card finally arrived. Yet she hesitates over certain chapters, the day she canceled her first wedding, the silence that swallowed her sister's funeral, the dread that settled like fog before every press tour. These omissions torment her more than monotony, reminding her that a life in headlines seldom captures the subtleties of heartbreak. Still, the memoir promises to weave fragile threads of truth, a mirror reflecting the scars now set in gold. For fans who follow her every move online, Julia remains an enigma. Her social media channels feature gentle images of twilight yoga sessions and garden blooms with captions encouraging mindfulness over performance. She posts rare selfies alongside aging mentors, celebrating grace rather than perfection. When comments flood in praising her looks, or lamenting the idea of retirement, she simply replies, choosing joy at every stage. Those words become a quiet mantra for thousands, an invitation to seek balance in a world of relentless achievement. It is perhaps her most potent role, teacher of serenity in a stage whisper. Meanwhile, Hollywood continues to call. Agents present scripts that would bank millions and spark headlines, yet Julia turns down the majority, saying she will act only in stories that still surprise her. She ponders an offer to voice a character in an animated feature exploring memory and loss, intrigued by the idea of conveying raw emotion through animation. She is also in talks to produce a miniseries about family estrangement, drawing on her own fractured bond with her brother. Each creative pursuit reflects a deep desire to mine authentic human experience rather than chase hollow spectacle. As an ambassador for initiatives supporting women's education, Julia has begun sporadic trips to underserved communities abroad. Pictures from a rural classroom in India show her teaching children to recite lines from Shakespeare, her eyes alight with the thrill of poetic discovery. These moments rekindle the wonder she felt in childhood theater games, reminding her that the transformative power of stories knows no border. In the faces of those young students, she sees both her former self and fresh possibilities of reinvention unbounded by age or expectation.